All right, here we are. Let's go to the next slide. Hey, Cecilia. Hey. Hmm? Yeah. So I think we'll just keep going through the next one. So, Brian, you want to talk to your place a little bit? What do you guys do here?
What are you up to?
He's like, no, I don't want to.
No, I don't want to talk. I want to get my
He's
donut.
What are we doing here?
What are you doing there, right behind you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's about my student business. That I'm, it's converted, but I'm gonna put some better batteries in it. Fine tune it, but it is running. We help people do conversions. We sell battery management systems, the dilithium, and we sell kits mostly for sailboats, so people can repower their boat. So we help mostly the do-it-yourselfers to kind of do their green.
Thunderstruck inside. You need a little sticker.
Strauss mobile about
What's that?
the Strauss.
The Strauss?
Yeah,
the Strauss ice cream truck?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's out
It's
there.
in the
Big
letter, right, you come in.
That's awesome. All right. So let's see. Need to go to the restroom. It's right behind that stuff there. And just if something happens in here, it's a room full of lithium, just leave. Look for daylight. And keep your hands in your pockets. That was a management rule that they taught me in the aerospace world, was keep your hands in your pockets on the floor. And thanks for the coffee and donuts, Mark. And welcome to Amy. And we'll get to introductions in a little bit. So thanks for joining us today. Anybody else new online? Looks like no. So let's go to the next slide. Don't know where Woody is. He may be driving in or taking on. I don't know how he's going to do it. He hasn't texted me yet. So David, how are you doing? And what'd you do on Earth Day?
I stayed home.
Stayed home.
Energy.
You what?
Probably worked on my Avani or something.
Oh, there you go.
Not much.
Not much. All right. How about you, Linda?
Earth Day? I ignored it like I do most holidays.
All right. There you go. Good plan.
It's a trend.
Russ?
I stayed home. I didn't do anything special, except remembered that it was Earth Day.
All right. Very good. Hey, Jack.
Wait, you went to the area.
Yeah.
Oh, you just hit mute again. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Jack, Sebastopol just got my knee replaced, so I'm sort of
Oh,
Ah.
how's the new knee?
it's coming along real well, actually. I'm starting to get out and do my walks on Coffee Lane.
Yeah.
All is well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. It's been a while. Slow upgrades throughout the day. More fiddling and farting around with technology. Hopefully that's better. We'll find out. Hey, Cecilia.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, and
They all froze.
They all froze.
Very good.
Very good.
How'd you do that?
I did an Earth Day event in Ukiah.
And how was that?
It was quiet, but it was cool. But we'll talk about it when we get to the slide for it. So, Ellen, welcome. We're just doing introductions. Who are you and what did you do on Earth Day?
My audio is off. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Ellen. I drive a 2017 Chevy Bolt that I bought used in 2019. And on Earth Day, I did a lot of gardening actually in our yard. We have a few planter boxes and I cleared them and got them ready to plant some tomatoes and zucchini.
You got frozen again.
It's frozen. All right, switching to alternate plan B, plan C.
Technology is great when it works.
Still frozen. All right,
They're-
super slow.
They're moving.
Okay, can you hear us here?
Can hear you.
Faster than I
Alright.
could text.
We froze on what you were saying, Ellen, but
Yeah.
just planted.
We heard tomatoes and cucumbers.
All right, Sonia, John, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm John. What did I do on Earth
What'd you
Day?
do on Earth Day?
Yeah. Well, Ellen and I took our truck Val to the Earth Day celebration at Santa Rosa Plaza. So we're there with Dom and other people, showing off our cars and talking to people. So that was good. And it rained.
Yeah, it rained in California on Earth Day.
Yeah.
Go figure. What's coming to an end?
Yeah. I mean, what's rain doing on Earth Day?
That's
I mean,
right. Sonia?
Hi, I'm Sonia, and I went to the UK on Earth Day, which is not the most earth-friendly thing to do, but I did take pictures of electric cars.
You did, good.
Yeah.
Good.
You should have said, I went to the UK on Earth Day because they stopped using coal.
There you go. There you go.
That's right.
And they're at 20% EVs, so they're doing
Really?
pretty good. They're
Wow.
doing pretty good.
20%.
Sales rate last year.
Wow.
It's
That's
going up.
fantastic. Wow.
Yep.
All right. Tour with the silent H.
Threw me for a second. Okay, yeah, I'm tour. Let's see. Earth Day. I did wander over to the rainy Earth Day celebration on the weekend, to chat with folks. And then on Tuesday, Earth Day, we hosted a climate-a-thon at the Grange, which about 40-50 people came and just shared ideas they wanted to generate and get some people to work on things. Part of the carbon conversations.
Nice.
Very good. Hey, Rob.
Oh,
You harvested probably.
All right, very good. Jerry?
I'm Jerry. On Earth Day, I got wet.
That's
With the rest.
That's right. What you, Brian?
On Earth Day, I was building, I was working in the garden, building, garden box.
Nice.
I'm Mark, and I had no recollection.
It was that good.
Mark's voice.
Well, welcome, Mark.
You were on Earth.
I believe so.
Yeah.
My calendar says it.
Yeah.
I'm Amy, and my husband and I, we had sunshine in San Mateo, so we went and picked up trash with other people along the shoreline.
Nice.
Nice, very nice. Good job.
That's pretty good, yeah.
On the berm.
All right,
Hi,
Brian.
I'm Brad. On Earth Day, I completely forgot that it was Earth Day, and was literally having lunch at La Rosa on Courthouse Square, wondering what event that was on Courthouse Square. And I go, well, that must not be a great day to have an event because it's, raining and cloudy and overcast.
That's awesome.
And it just didn't dawn on me that Earth Day was supposed to be on Saturday instead of on Sunday. And I get out there and it's over, and oh, that's where I was supposed to be today. Sorry.
Mike.
I'm Mike, and hung out with the rest of the club members on Earth Day at Santa Rosa. But it was actually a good turnout, even though it was rainy. We talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway,
nice.
good
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, that's good.
Bernie, I was there at Earth Day and
Yeah.
Showing my car.
Yeah.
Not that anybody was interested.
Well,
I
poor
kept showing
Bernie.
them the sign. Everybody's tired of Teslas.
Yeah, Bernie brought his Tesla.
With the sign on the back that says what?
Well, mine says, I love my Tesla. Despise Musk.
But you were using it for a local heater for people, weren't you? Going inside there and having the heater on?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I was just the warming hut for
It was the
everybody.
warming hut.
So I think Bernie demonstrates the Nathan Hill rule of Tesla ownership, right? I despise it, you drive it, but I defend your ability to do so, right?
I didn't want to upgrade to the new one, but my wife says no to that.
No, that's right. You're stuck with the one. Cecilia, did we go for you while we were offline down here?
Yep.
All right, very good. I'm Dom, and I was with the rest of the gang here getting rained. We were actually camping at Doran Beach for the weekend, and came over, and it was just misting sort of ish here, but it was pouring at the beach.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pouring, and we got quite wet, but Sunday morning we cleaned up, came home, shook off like a dog, and back to it. So, all right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our visitors, and to the next slide.
So one note on Earth Day observation that I had, because we've been doing this for years now. In the early years when we did Earth Day and we brought our cars, everybody who came to talk to us, they didn't have EVs. I thought about 90% of the people who stopped by to talk to us this year,
Already had them.
they drive EVs. They want to talk about their EV, about what maybe the challenges were, what they really loved about it, which one should they get next. We had very few people who came along, except for the ones who said, I have to have gas. And they just came up to us to say, I can't have any.
I need you to know that I have to have gas.
I have to, I need the power. Yeah. Well, one guy said, I need the power.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. Oh, really?
Did you absolve him of that, Jerry?
I tried.
Get in, let's go for a ride.
So he walked away.
Wait, so he said he needs to have power.
That's why he has the big car with gasoline powered engine.
Did he say like why? Like in terms of towing or in terms of like speed, or has he not? Oh,
The feel.
Got sounds from him.
oh, you mean the sound? Okay, yeah, the sound.
Well, in that story I tell, when we were bringing up a factory in Indiana, with bringing in the electric trucks that we were building, and the guys there said, they'll never sell. I said, they don't make enough noise.
Just got a chair back.
And he was dead serious.
Oh, okay.
You need to get a noisemaker.
Oh, well, you can put one of those in. They
That,
sell
yeah,
those.
that was a safety concern with a lot of the early EVs in terms of low speeds, like
Hey, what-
people crossing streets.
No, the noise they want was.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Different noise.
We did have a gentleman who worked for Valero. He worked at the Valero refinery, and he drives an EV6, and I think he was looking for a new place, a new home, because they're shutting down Valero.
Oh, wow.
They're shutting down the refinery, and I think it's 2026. I think they've been in a year.
Oh, in Richmond.
Yeah, in Richmond, no, Benicia.
Benicia, okay.
Yeah. So we talked at length about it. I do need to figure out why he didn't get his email that I sent him. Because I need to make sure that there's a connection between the website and the email system. And I don't know. He said he never got an email from us that said, "Don't bring your car," because he rushed to get there to bring his car. So I need to figure that out.
Oh,
Right. But
yeah, the site.
yeah, he really loves his car. Absolutely loves it. He didn't have the same reaction that your buddy did, Jerry. He was very into it.
Makes converts.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. Howdy. So, I think we added, let's just talk about the mission of the EVA. The Electric Vehicle Certification educates and advocates for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles. So we'll talk about this when we talk about the free Earth Day events we sponsored, but that's just a neat way to get people on baseline of what it is that we do. It's a neat little catchphrase to memorize. I think over the last through the events, we picked up several, 6 or 7, maybe 8 emails that you added to the list now, Jerry.
Yeah,
Something like
and
that?
2 people did not yet have Google accounts, and Zano keeps arguing with me that they don't need Google accounts. But Google doesn't know what resources to give you access to unless you have a Google account, because you would need to log in and say, I'm me, therefore I belong to this, and I can now have access to the PDF files or to other stuff that we post.
Google's not smart enough to figure out that my Outlook account can have all those rights.
I think it wants to associate your Outlook email to a Google
it
email.
does.
And they'll send you an email.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
To your Outlook
But
account.
you need to have a password, so you say, you can't just say, I'm me with no password, because anybody can say they were you.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think you can use your own email as the primary, but
Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
sets
you
you
can
up.
use any email.
Yeah.
Whatever.
yeah.
So we do send out 3 emails a month to try to minimize the amount of blasts. They come from the club email address. And then we've got a Facebook group as well that we probably need a new owner of. I think Cecilia said you were no longer keeping the Facebook up to date. Is that right, Cecilia?
I am not on Facebook again anymore.
Okay, very good. So we need to find a new owner to manage that.
I thought Ellen had.
Ellen, did you pick that up? The Facebook account?
Yes, I hold on, let me turn my video on. I did some recent posts about Earth Day, the 3 different Earth Day events, and then I've posted about the meetings, but I'm happy to do that every month. I'm not sure what else we would like with the Facebook account, but I'm happy to support with
Yeah,
the Facebook.
I think you did what's necessary, Ellen. So thanks for jumping on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to post each month about the meeting and let me know if there's like other things you'd like me to do on there, but I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go to the next
Oh,
slide.
actually, Don, does it make sense to check in, since we've got a few new people here, about how they heard about the NBEAA?
We don't have that many.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
I
have
was
a new
just
person.
thinking,
Yeah, we'll
4? Is that?
No, Peter's been here for years.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Anyway.
We're good. We're good.
So
You had to write the names down.
Oh, Rob, Amy, Mark, and I'm sorry, I didn't know.
so let's go. So all of this is available.
You look familiar.
So these are recorded and posted on YouTube at the NBEAA channel, and then available on PDF as well. Go next slide.
But the major part is that now that the society's been maintaining NBEAA.org, the link to the video is always there as well, and you can get to the channel from there. So you have to remember the channel.
And then we talked about club. I encourage you guys, if you are interested in all things EV, to opt in to discuss. I think we resolved your issues finally on discuss and opting in.
Okay.
So I encourage you to, if you want to jump in the ongoing dialogue, opt into the NBA discuss account, and then send any news items to news@nbea.org. Next slide. So we've got the next slide. We had 3 events in the last month. We supported an Earth Day event in Ukiah, Earth Day event in Santa Rosa, and one in Petaluma. And the good news is they weren't on the same weekend. So we were finally in a place where we're not multitasked like we had been last year. So start with you, Cecilia. How'd you guys do up there?
You're muted.
Well, yeah, we had our Earth Day event like just ahead of official Earth Day. It was in the morning, which was a slight shift from being more in the afternoon because it was so hot last year. And we'd moved more into the shade. So we co-hosted this event with Climate Action Mendocino, and we had 7 EVs there. So not as many like a huge like everybody bring your car as we did last year. But it was Easter weekend and not a whole lot of people showed up, although we did have some people come through and it was cool. Also had a little an Aptera show up. Um, Spoiler alert, it was not a one you could ride in. It was just a model. Yeah.
This one here in the center,
Yeah.
a little tiny dude there. How big was the model? Like something that could fit in the palm of your hand, it looks like.
It's like this big.
Oh.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
I really thought it was an Aptera when I first looked at that picture. What's wrong here?
That's pretty good.
That's fun.
All right.
I'm glad you had a flag because we have flags for everybody.
We have flags.
We have
We have
lots of
flags for every city in Sonoma County, I think. So we did Earth Day in Santa Rosa. And I'll let you guys brought the vehicles. What did you think? Oh, you weren't there. Bernie, what did you think? Any swastika, any salutes to your car when you
Well, I didn't get much attention, and I
Yeah.
didn't last year either.
Right.
But we did have that sign on the car, and somebody asked me, and I couldn't figure out why they asked me this. Why do you want to sell your car? And
That's right.
and what that was just a statement saying how much you could go online and
That's
buy
right.
a Tesla Model 3 or a Model Y for. And it wasn't that I was trying to sell it, but I only had one guy.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think that was important really, to get that little message up
Yeah, that's right.
about used cars.
Mike, did you have any lessons learned, takeaways, or?
Well, kind of like what Jerry said, we talked, I think, more to people who already are EV owners.
Yeah.
And so I think we didn't have too many debates, about whether EVs were environmentally friendly or not. And so say it was probably just a good event for just getting a common understanding and being in like-minded folks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
I just wandered through, but I had a great conversation with Ellen, who's helping people buy used.
Yeah.
With some new little nuances.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll be shared later on today, but that's developing, and I think that information is still useful out there.
Ellen, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sometime I'd like to do like a slide or a little presentation on what I've learned about Key Savvy, which acts as an online dealership for private sale of electric cars, and they allow private sales to get the $4,000 federal used EV credit. So anyway, I'm happy to share more sometime about that, but I have an experience, my aunt and a friend did that, successfully, a private sale with Key Savvy. And yeah, anyway, I'm happy to share more, but I was able to share, my experience with a couple people about that. So that was great.
Oh, yeah, very good.
One other observation I still have was that since I wasn't there last year, but I was there before. The year before I went home, I was forced for 2 days.
Right.
Because there were so many people, so many questions, all kinds of. This year, the amount of turnout I felt was a lot less than it was 2 years ago. It could be the rain, but it could also be the nature of the event.
Well, I thought there was a fair number of people early. It was.
Yeah.
till
Well,
the
that's
rain
when it wasn't raining so hard.
Yeah. Woody, what was your experience there?
I think the rain dampened things. I mean, it was a good event, and we did get good response early on, and but yeah, it sort of petered out. It seemed like it got colder.
Yeah.
Cold.
It didn't warm up. It got
Yeah.
colder.
It got
So I
cold.
think that
Climate change.
All right, go to the next one.
Could I share something really quick, Dom?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to say for those of you that weren't there, my dad and I made kind of a cool battery box cover out of a thick vinyl that we got, clear vinyl that we got at Tap Plastics, and we made a little wooden frame so people could see into the truck battery box entirely, and that was kind of fun and caught some interest from people.
Yeah, that was good.
People are really curious
About conversions.
how battery cells are set up and
Yeah.
like what's it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the fun part, Ellen, as you remember, is that as it started to rain, we were watching her drip getting in there because it was not waterproof.
Right.
It was somewhat waterproof, but yeah, not totally. But
Yeah.
Water resistant.
Resistant, yeah, but they're a fool.
Started back up at the end of the event, so it must have been good enough. Yeah.
Well, the problem is we disconnect the battery at the beginning of the event in the battery box. That means contact with a high voltage terminal, which I did, and it has to be done carefully so that I'm not conducting a circuit. But when it was all wet at the end,
Yeah.
it was a little more challenging.
Yeah.
And Ellen, we had a rag to dry things, and Ellen was covering it up over me, and I was having one hand in my pocket as I did it. It's like, oh my God.
Need the rubber glove.
Yeah.
Cool.
Switch.
Scary.
So we were invited by the Golden Gate EV Association to join them in Petaluma for an event called Cool Petaluma Future Fest, and it was really great. Nice vehicles, no internal combustion engines came out, and Mia brought her '89 Suzuki Samurai, and she had it all. It had just been converted, like maybe a month ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And she's making it her daily driver. And she had this awesome demo where she was actually charging from the city of Petaluma's F-150. And she had set it up so that the city of Petaluma was charging from that solar panel. It was just awesome. So we had, because of this conversion, we had lots of attention because, honestly, the cars they're just cars, right? And so to Jerry's point, the new cars they're just cars. They look like cars. They do car-like things, whereas the conversions are always, we've seen that again and again.
20 years
Also,
with Damon Crockett and all trucks, he sent 440 volt, the so-called T-Rex motor controller to a client in Japan. And what these guys had done, they put a big electric motor in a little Samurai, and then they attached it to this motor controller. There's like these 4 Japanese guys in his shop, and the guy pulls out the switch and turns the ignition on, and there's a huge explosion. There's a flame coming out of the front, and it's blowing the grill out. Apparently, the controller was malfunctioning.
Oh.
And then you can hear these guys, in Japanese swearing. It's so funny. Tell them I have the movie of this. I'll bring it by at some point.
That's awesome.
Hilarious.
Amy, did you have anything you wanted to share about the event? Any lessons learned, takeaways?
People are still surprised how awesome EVs are.
Yeah.
They think it's like inaccessible, and then they sit in there like, it's a car. It's like, it is. It's not all computer. It's car.
It's just car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that. My sister-in-law comes to visit us, and since we only have EVs, she wouldn't use the cars because I don't know how to drive one. And well, then a few months ago, she lives in Alaska, so she has a summer car and a winter car. So she recently got the hybrid plug-in Dodge. I've got the name of it now. Somebody else can remember the name of it. So she's now driving all electric, and she has been driving all electric. But that was the whole point. Was she goes, I don't know how to drive an electric, and now that she's doing it, she said, "Oh, I plug it in the garage," and she says, "It isn't any different."
Yeah. That's right.
I had a couple observations from Cool Petaluma. It was a different crowd because it was basically like everyone who was very eco in Petaluma came. And
Right.
So I'd say 40% of the cars that pulled in, maybe only 30, were EVs. And we talked to a few different people, like other than like EV owners, we talked to a few different people that were like, my current car is a hybrid and I'm fine with that and I don't need to change, or my next car will also be a hybrid, because I'm concerned about long distance trips and charging. And I thought, well, each year we do these things, last year's problem is presented as this year's problem. And I think like last year's problem was maybe if you had a non-Tesla, you didn't have enough places to charge, or it was going to be inconvenient. And they'd seem like the EA stations and the backups and stuff. And now with more charging options, problematic perhaps, but more charging options, I feel like people can get a lot of different types of cars and not have long distance problems. So I thought that might be a good message.
Yeah, I think the last with the charging, the last of the problems, there's now more charge ports than there are gas spigots in California, maybe in the United States, but certainly in California. That the major challenge.
And that's not counting home charging.
Yeah, that's not counting. That's just
publicly accessible.
Yeah, publicly accessible. The main challenge is that the method that now became standard in all gas stations, you take out your credit card, you can use your credit card, blah, blah, blah. Pretty much most of the systems still work. Oh, I belong to this network. So once that goes away, and there's legislation, I believe, that says you can't do that anymore. First of all, you have to have over time, and I think it's until 2027, the method of you billing, I don't want to call it charging, has to be standardized. So you can't say it's this number, this much per minute, and it's this much per kilowatt, blah, blah, blah. That's now going standard. And I believe also the payment method is starting to become standardized.
So I'm thinking about marketing things to say at these types of events. And the other one was people think the EVs might require more maintenance. And so they're still not familiar with the value of not having any maintenance in it. So I thought, well, maybe there are a couple of poster boards or little stories that we could tell in the future, because we're running out of things to tell people, right? Like we're all familiar with the fact that like a lot of people are like, let me tell you how informed I am. They don't really want to hear from you.
So somebody did ask me, how much maintenance did you have on your, I've been driving EV since 98. And how much maintenance have I had over the last, since 2011, except for failures in brand new cars, I've had no maintenance.
Yeah, what do you
on that first oil change, huh?
Somebody actually asked me about how often do you have to change the oil? I said, there's no oil to change.
Yeah, what do you
Yeah, it sounds like we need a Mythbusters fact sheet. It's like, this conversation is reminding me of the early days. You hear this thing of, oh yeah, go ahead, get your EV, but in about 3 or 5 years, you need to replace the entire battery.
Right.
It's gonna cost you $6,000. And are people still hearing that fear?
They are hearing that. Pointed out in California, it's required that any new EV must have 80% of its range the first 100,000 miles or 8 years. And the other thing was we started.
You're preaching to the choir.
I know.
So let's keep moving, folks, because we do want to get to Woody's presentation.
We had a meeting, we were going through FAQs, we never finished it. There's actually a posting of FAQs, and that is one we should start using.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. There's a few news items I do want to get to. I want to give Woody maybe an hour for your discussion. So if we can aim towards a 11 o'clock start, we'll keep going. So there's a few news items here. Jerry brought this one forward.
Yeah, I pushed that one. If you zoom in, you can see them. I only put up on the screen cars from Western United States. This is just this is Enterprise car rentals,
right?
Selling used EVs. These are all under $25,000. Some of them are at the $18,000 and $15,000 level, and these are just ones from the Western state. I looked at what they listed today. They have over 50 cars used cars that they're selling. So that's just one of the rental agencies. And so when we do the event in the fall, shoot, I gotta go now look and see if I'm going to be in Europe then. The event in the fall. The focus really ought to be used cars. Right? And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
it's
there's just so many sales that are used cars.
And Jerry, I bet you if you went to Hertz, you'd see a similar thing.
Yeah,
I think if you went to Edmunds, you'd see a similar thing.
I got an email flyer from Enterprise saying, do you want to buy a used EV?
Right.
I mean, they don't know that I'm an EV driver. I'm an Enterprise customer.
Right. Yeah, I bet you there's probably 6 or 8 national feeds on used cars that we could be posting on our website to say, this is our used car section, right? And here's access to enterprise, here's Hertz, here's Edmunds, here's cars.com,
That's a great idea.
right? And just,
We might be able to do a deep link to the filter on electric, and,
Yeah, yeah.
put that on our site.
especially if we build it based on what Ellen's doing and her
Yeah,
research
yeah.
and tie all that together to a webinar.
The link I put on the page, if who's
Yeah.
interested, is a link to enterprise and with a filter for EVs.
Perfect. That,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if you
that's
could do
good.
that on a few other sites.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
exactly. Brad, you had a comment?
Yeah, this has come up before over the years. Has anyone heard any news about any used vehicle dealerships specializing in EVs in the North Bay?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's evercars.net in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's all EVs,
Is it
like
nice?
EVers, as
Is
in
it visible or
Evercars.
just virtual?
Both.
Is it, Ellen, is it there, what's the name of the burger ship that you said was?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you also about there's an a used electric car broker for I think it's the Bay Area or it's California called eMotion, Emotion. And they essentially you tell them exactly the make and model and specs you want of an electric car, and they'll look at auctions, dealerships, etc. all around, find you that car and charge you, a $500 fee, but I just learned about that this week and it sounds really cool. A friend of mine's gonna use them, so I'll let you know what I find out about that.
Yeah.
Emotion.
Well, I know that there's
to the
one in
next slide.
Daly City called Greenlight Auto Wholesale. I hadn't heard of the Evercars one. And then Ellen mentioned earlier Key Savvy in terms of trying to arrange the federal used clean vehicle tax credit.
Let's go to the next slide.
Well, so I went to Brighton in the UK, which is just south of London, all the way to the shore, and so it's kind of like both a residential community that's similar to like the size of Bodega Bay or something, a little bigger than that, and also kind of like a weekend community for Londoners to have, nice condos that face the water. And I saw a lot of EV kind of just stuff going on. So I've got like a Mini Cooper S plugged into a public street charger using its own cord. So we've covered that before. And then the upper right one was the Kia EV3. So that was kind of exciting.
That's what that is.
And we're waiting for that, right? Like they
Yeah,
did it before us.
Yeah.
And then there was the Renault Megane or Megane, I don't know how you say it.
Yeah.
Does anyone know if that's like an Aria? Like, do we have that or something? A Nissan Aria? Oh,
They're the same company, right? Renault and Mitsubishi, and the same company, right?
oh, Mitsubishi.
No, Renault and Nissan. Yeah.
Renault and Nissan are kind of the same,
Yeah,
so I thought it might be
It might be.
the Aria, but I saw 3 of those Renault Meganes, so that's happening. And then the last one on the lower left was a Hyundai Ioniq 5 just plugged in at a house. They had hybrid stop-start double-decker buses. And I thought, oh, it's interesting, like they're really lurchy, and you hear the engine go on and it's like the signal that you're about to take off. And I thought, I wonder if they're gonna have to do like lighting visuals when they go to all electric next, like
Right.
I'm about to pull off, pull forward or something like that.
Right.
But
That's
it
cool.
seemed pretty like, nobody's talking about it. They're just driving.
How many chances of us getting to the cableless charge stations here in the States? In Europe, that's the standard. And it just makes so much sense, especially with the picture I brought in last time here in town.
Bring your own cable.
Yeah, where they cut the cable off so the charge station's not usable.
Yeah.
Somebody steals the cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really nice.
We go to the next one.
Does induction charging actually loses efficiency because of whatever?
I have a friend who has a company and down the South Bay, guy who was building electric buses and trucks with us, now doing inductive, and I forgot what his how it's done, but they can focus the inductive, so the efficiency is just as good as with an electric induction.
And the EV1 fast charger was now for transform. Yeah, so it's inductive charging as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
John?
So the Slate, some of you heard about, actually Ellen and I heard about it, I think for the first time at Earth Day. Somebody told us about it, and so we looked it up. It's a little pickup with no, bare bones, doesn't have much of a entertainment. It doesn't have an infotainment system as far as I know. You can get some additional stuff to add to it, but it's like smaller than a standard small half-ton pickup. It's got a 7 cubic foot trunk. I think that's kind of cool. So you open up the trunk and the front under the hood, and it's pretty spacious. Anyway, the cool thing is you can look at this and see some of the specs on it. It has an NACS port in the rear. It will take, I think, 120 kilowatts rate. Has a 150 kilowatt hour battery starter. Sorry.
No, try again.
Sorry, 50. I think it's like 52 or something starters. 150 kilowatt motor. So it goes 150 miles, and it can get a long range version for, that'll go 250. But the cool thing is that they're targeting under 30,000 for it. I think 27,000, and then the federal rebate if it's still there, would get you down below 20,000. And it's designed in California, made in the U.S. and coming out in 2026, they say, but we'll see.
You can reserve one right now for $50. And so for several friends of mine have already reserved them. And they come with no paint. You have to wrap it. You wrap it yourself.
Yeah, I think that it has paint, of course.
No,
well, I mean to protect. It's gray. It's got a
prime
gray.
It's in prime.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But you can as you see here, you add accessories. You can turn it into a little SUV with a sealed canopy and back seat, and all sorts of things you can do, and wrap it instead.
And is it manual windows?
Yes. Is it?
Yeah.
Manual windows,
Yeah.
manual windows.
When you posted this, John, I went looking for a comparable quarter-ton pickup, and I couldn't find that anybody sells a quarter-ton pickup anymore. There's no such thing. All of the trucks are bigger now.
Like the Maverick's bigger than that?
Well, the Maverick
Oh, yeah,
would be
Maverick's
bigger,
bigger.
just a hybrid.
Right.
I'm talking about, I used to own a quarter-ton pickup.
I've never owned a quarter.
Like a
Toyota,
Chevy- well,
Toyota
like-
used to have
like a
one.
truck,
Like a little.
Yeah.
or like a Chevy Love. It's
Like a
Love.
Chevy Love or a Mitsubishi Ram or Ram
You try to
50.
put a half ton to some of the half tons. Okay.
So that wheelbase was 9 feet long,
Really?
It's almost
Right.
identical to a Corvette.
right?
No,
The wheelbase is 9 feet, and
Yeah.
the outside of and that's just slightly bigger than the full length of the Samurai that we looked at. The whole length of the Samurai was 10 feet long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Is the
Yeah, this is-
quarter ton thing based, because a ton is what, 2,000 pounds?
Yes, 1,000-pound carry.
So
Well, a
500
quarter
pounds
would
would
be
be a
500, but
No,
that's what a payload is?
Oh, quarter, you're right, 500 pounds. Yeah.
Okay,
500-pound carry.
like in terms of what can go in the
It's
bed?
legally, I
Yeah.
put a ton in my truck and it bottoms out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You can do a lot.
Yeah.
I used to
My
load
half
the
ton
hay
has
into
700
the
pounds.
quarter-ton
So
truck and then put a block of
Okay.
wood over the springs in the back so I could make it home.
I remember seeing this ad and thinking like, this isn't real, just some AI generated thing.
No, this is real.
You
It's
know,
a company based out of Indiana, and
Yeah.
it will be 100% made in the USA.
You find people behind it.
This is
This is
backed
funded by
by-
Bezos. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the name of the company?
Slate.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Slate.
They like to call it
Yeah.
a blank. You start with a blank slate.
Start with a blank
and you get
slate,
to
yeah.
build your own.
The one thing I noticed about it, for the purists in the room, it is NMC batteries, because that's what you can get in the US now. These are they're not lifeboat. This is LF, they're NMC. So
But isn't Slate a name of like an online magazine too?
sure, it's lots of things.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, just
It's also roof
it's-
tile.
Yeah, it's slate.auto, not slate.com.
Yeah.
I believe they worked with Sandy Monroe and Associates to for some ideas about manufacturing. But he did a video covering their their event. So, he was there in person. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Did somebody repeat what she said?
Yeah, you gotta speak up. Let's see.
I cannot.
Okay.
Bezos was at an event promoting it.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was Sandy Monroe.
The other day.
Oh, Sandy Monroe. I'm
Sandy
sorry.
Monroe's from.
Sandy Monroe.
Oh, that's
They
cool.
introduced a small electric pickup truck on this show. It was red and it looked almost like an old Corvair pickup truck. Remember those cab forward things? And they're also aiming for selling them for like $25,000.
That's Tello. And
Right.
so I was confusing Tello and Slate. I thought it was all one project,
no,
but
no.
the Tello is much tinier and
Yeah.
it's cab forward, like you were saying.
Yes,
So has a wheelbase of about like a Mini Cooper. And
Yes.
the tires are
But it's really cute.
all the way out to the edges.
Yeah, but
Very
look at what
tiny.
you drive.
I don't know.
No, I'm talking about the other ones.
Oh,
It's bigger
The
than
little
you.
guys.
all the
Bigger than
Sparrows,
your Sparrow.
I got one in LA yesterday that had 471 original miles on it.
Ah.
Let's go to the next slide. What year?
Assembly line, 2001.
Oh, wow.
And I had it sanctified at Mike Corbin's shop in.
20 or 25 miles a year.
Okay, we gotta move
So,
forward.
yeah, so just quickly, so some of you may remember the big falderall that took place in the fall, literally in the fall, where CARB has been outlawing, or all of the RV people are kind of freaking out that CARB has been outlawing or claiming being outlawing the RVs, diesel pushers, and all these big RVs. And I'm not an advocate for those, but nevertheless, there hasn't really been a good answer for the big RVs. So a company in Southern California, Harbinger, who builds chassis, partnered with Thor Industries to build a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid EV RV chassis. So if you go to the Harbinger website, it just shows you a picture of the chassis and the hybrid that's underneath it. And you go to the Thor website, and here's their first prototype of it. But it's a 1.4 liter inline 4-cylinder, which is probably the same as my old Volt was. And that they pushed that with an 800-volt generator and a 50-gallon tank. And that Rex recharges the 140 or 175 kilowatt-hour battery system. It's an enormous amount of torque and an enormous amount of horsepower. And it'll fill these batteries to 80% in about an hour, built in Garden Grove, California. So
Wow.
it's a half measure to get to that to keep the RV community from freaking the hell out. But it's also built in California.
Regarding the 2035 mandate.
Yeah, it's maybe Woody knows more about it than I do when the chassis were outlawed, but that was supposed to be, I think, in 25 or 26 or 27. It came on really fast, and I think all of the medium-sized chassis manufacturers sort of ignored it. They thought it was going to go away, and then all of a sudden it's on it. And I mean in 2025. I'm sure they had time to figure it out. They took no action. But now these guys are putting a position in there. So it's a half measure. It's not perfect, but if you go to those two links there, one talks about the chassis opportunity, and the other is the world-class motor.
Yeah,
What
that's
do
a
they
big deal.
want for that?
What's that?
What do they want?
I don't know. I didn't look into the pricing yet, but it was a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah,
Well,
Bernie, one of
You have
my
the bi-directional ability.
RVs.
Yeah,
Just sitting in your driveway.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's a good point.
and one of my
Yeah.
questions was how much does it weigh? That's a big vehicle.
Yeah, it's a big vehicle, but the battery's actually smaller than the big pickup truck. It's about the same size as a Ford Lightning battery.
Huh.
Right.
So,
And
but
then
isn't the point that it's using the battery and the motor in a way that allows both to be operating at the same time when
Yes.
you're cruising?
Yeah.
Because it's not a big enough motor to drive.
I
Big
well,
enough engine.
I think it's an inline hybrid like the Volt was.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
I think so.
Huh.
Range.
Okay, so
I
they're
think
using
so.
both at the same time.
I think so. I'll confirm that.
Wait, the Volt didn't drive.
The Volt was both. Yeah, it was
Was
inline
it?
hybrid.
No,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
like
no, no. When you were
not
going
go.
up a hill, it was
Oh,
you
well, it
had
did have mountain mode. or
you had go in
something. It
mountain
had a
mode, and that
mode.
thing would that would take the half piece at 100 miles an hour. Don't ask me how I know, but I have personal proof that it did that because it would burn the
I
gas,
think
and
that's
it would
normal,
turn
though,
it would
right?
turn the generator into a motor, and it would use the motor to get you up the hill. So when it needed to, the bolt would actually fly. And I think this may do the same thing. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it says inline. Go back to that. It did say
Did
inline.
say Rex.
Yeah, inline. So that means it's a it's a full it's a combo of gas and electric for propulsion. So Woody has joined us for today. So we're within a minute of being on time. I think we're actually early, Woody. So thanks for taking the time to meet with us today.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me some time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's the camera.
Yeah, I'll aim the camera at you, Woody, since you've been
Oh,
talking a bit.
right, yes.
Or I'll be your what do you call a key grip?
Keep it, good. So I know I don't know everyone.
Hold
here.
on, hold on. The camera's not on if you're actually trying to point it at someone.
I'm sorry, I just saw Cecilia's text.
Camera's not on.
We're not on. We're not on.
Not
camera.
on at
Adjusting
all.
yourself anyway.
Key grip is
There you go.
really.
Sorry, Cecilia.
Is that on now? You see us, Cecilia?
Now we see you. Yes.
Okay. Have we been
Where
off
am
for a
I?
while or just
Yeah.
anyway? Doesn't
Where
matter.
am I?
Yeah, go ahead, Woody.
All right. Gonna work. So, since I don't know everyone, and I think I might not know everyone online, Woody Hastings, I am the Phase Out Polluting Fuels Program Director for the Climate Center. Climate Center is a nonprofit organization that was founded in Sonoma County in 2001. I also volunteer. I'm the co-coordinator of something called the Coalition Opposing New Gas Stations. I'm going to mention a couple of things. Before we get to my actual presentation on my drive over, it occurred to me a couple of things I could mention. And I can be quick about this, but when I walked in, I heard the discussion about Valero Refinery and the Valero Benicia Refinery and their announcement to close down. So my work at the Climate Center is all around oil and gas extraction and refining. That's the work I do now there at the Climate Center. And not only do we have the announcement from Valero Benicia that they're planning to close down in April 2026, Phillips 66 down in Los Angeles announced that they're closing at the end of this year, Q4 2025. We've also got scuttlebutt that Valero Wilmington in Southern California refinery is planning to close. I'm mentioning this because the dynamics around gas, we could be really tight on gasoline supply by around sometime in 2026. So gasoline prices, there are some projections that gasoline prices are going to go way up, right?
Where will the California fuels come from if they're not?
Right, we could go into the weeds. I don't want to go
Okay.
into this in great detail.
Yeah.
We're limited in what we can import. We can only import. We don't have pipelines coming into California for
Right.
finished fuels, so it's only imports by marine terminal, right? That's the quick answer.
Okay. Gotcha.
If we can do that, right?
Right.
And we can, but anyway. So I just wanted to mention that because that could really change some of the dynamics around people's thinking around EVs and which is the better mousetrap, right? And then I just also wanted to mention before I get to what I brought today is that so some of you are aware of this whole effort that's been going on since 2019 to stop building new gas stations in Sonoma County, right? Well, we've gotten all but 3 of the local government jurisdictions, the county, Sonoma County, so all the unincorporated parts, and 6 cities, only Healdsburg, Cloverdale, and the city of Sonoma, do not have permanent prohibitions against new gas stations. So there's very limited opportunity for any new gas stations in Sonoma County right now. Santa Rosa, when it adopted its ordinance in 2022, there were 2 gas stations that proposals that slipped in under the radar. They had completed permit applications. So they were not included in the prohibition, right? One of them we were able to defeat. It was over on the east side of Santa Rosa. The other one is still in play. And on April 10th, a horde of us showed up at the Planning Commission for its big hearing. And we succeeded in getting a unanimous decision from the Planning Commission to reject the conditional use permit for this gas station. It's at 874 North Wright Road, right at the intersection of Fulton and Highway 12. Well, the applicant on April 21st appealed it. So it's going to go to the Santa Rosa City Council probably sometime in July. So I just want to let y'all know there's still a gas station that we're battling here in some local stuff. We're still battling that. So I might ping folks. I know North Bay Association has been very supportive, been on some of our coalition letters in the past, supporting the prohibition stuff, going against some of the gas station proposals. So thank you for that. And we're probably going to ask you to chime in on some of that hopefully one last time, because it could be the very last gas station proposal ever in Sonoma County, because it's unlikely a gas station can be proposed in Healdsburg or city of Sonoma. Cloverdale, probably not.
I don't understand why they think it's a good financial.
It's the business case is bad. The question is about the financial. It sucks. I mean, gasoline sales have been in decline in California since 2017. And that is accelerating. The trend is continuing to accelerate away from gasoline. So it doesn't make good business sense. There are 10 gas stations operating within a 5-mile radius of that specific location. It's adjacent to the Joe Rodota Trail. It's in a wetland. It's crazy. It should not. And the Planning Commission made the right decision because we made all those points, not the points about the business case, because the business case, that's something for the developer, but they don't seem to want to hear it.
Did the SCTA also testify or not?
No, none of the local agencies have chimed in.
They have project plans.
SCT, well, right, they have big project plans to do like a massive roundabout or an overpass, underpass like that.
Tear that out.
It's a terrible intersection. See, just from the get-go, the traffic circulation there is really, really sketchy. One last question, and then we should get to my main thing.
Yeah, what was the address of that?
874 North Wright Road. There's a small section of Wright Road. It's mostly South Wright Road. And then between Sebastopol Road and Highway 12, it's called North Wright Road. So it's right at Blue Star Gas is a big, huge. That's another thing Blue Star Gas has these enormous, they're probably 13,000 gallon or something above ground propane storage tanks right there at Blue Star Gas.
Explosion.
Great, and to have that adjacency of a gas station and a propane, I don't know. So this is just an overview. You're getting more, more than you bargained for here, because there's legislature. That's what it's supposed to talk about. But I started looking at it and thought there's a lot going on in Sacramento, and so I want to try to cover a few things. So we're going to talk about stuff that's specific to the governor, stuff that's specific to the California budget, and the budget is really a lot of times where you need to focus, because what's the state actually going to invest its money in, right? It's a budget, the legislation, regulatory stuff, which is actually sort of usually implementation of legislation, some deployment, a couple of deployment things that Climate Center is involved in. And then Brad asked us to talk a little bit about oil industry lobbying, spending, off the charts, and then just a couple of calendar things. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, so is it possible to play this video? This is, we shouldn't forget when governors say things like this. I hope we could get this to work. We didn't test it out.
Give me a second. Let me share audio.
Share audio and click that start button. It's just Governor Newsom talking about vehicle grid vehicle grid integration back in 2022. And he's basically singing our song here. And so, it's sort of a hold the feet to the fire kind of thing in 2025. So Cecilia, can we make that magic happen?
This vehicle to grid capacity, that is a game changer. You'll be writing a lot more and talking a lot more about this. The opportunity for vehicles to be battery storage and then export their off-peak charge back onto the grid during the peak to absorb more load. This is the future that the folks out there in the anger industry and machine don't understand, but everybody here does. The Bay Area is dominating in this space. 43 manufacturers in this space in the state of California, hundreds of headquartered companies already in this space. We dominate in electric vehicle and innovation and entrepreneurialism and the software development in this space. And we want to continue that leadership, and that's what today's all about.
You know, I don't know if you attend the PG&E Innovation Day, but they spent hours on vehicle to grid because they're really relying on it.
So, thank you. So that was almost verbatim what he said there, some material we had sent the governor's office because we were on the cusp of introducing legislation that is now adopted, SB 59 last year adopted, that charges the California Energy Commission to mandate or authorizes them to mandate bidirectionality in certain vehicle classes, vehicle classes that they determine should be bidirectional, because in some cases, not so much. Or we'll see, maybe every vehicle should be bidirectional, right? But maybe. You can go to the next slide.
This vehicle to grid capacity that is a
next.
game changer. You'll be writing a lot more and talking a lot more about this. The opportunity
Deja vu,
for
Wawa?
vehicles to be battery storage.
Yeah, she's working.
She's working on it.
All right.
So fast forward to 2005, 3 years later, and we've got SB 59 implement or enacted for calling bidirectional. However, if we can go to the next slide, I think the next slide talks about our efforts now to get the governor to sort of move forward in a way that the state can move forward, and that is to have the state put its money where its mouth is. And for the 36,000 or so vehicles that the state currently has, most of them are still gas-powered vehicles. Only about 7% of them are hybrids or EVs, right? So the vast amount of procurement is still ahead of us as the attrition happens in vehicle turnover, you get new vehicles. It's mostly in front of us. So are we just going to be buying straight EVs, or are we going to be, is the state going to procure bidirectional EVs so that we're ready to be able to tap into that once we have critical mass of EVs out there? We can use those EVs for what he was just talking about, for managing the grid, for dealing with peak episodes and all that. So that's what that's talking about. We're working right now. We've done some analysis and shared that with the governor to try to get him to issue an executive order. So I think you can go to the next slide, and it talks about what we want to see in that executive order. So it's investing in bidirectional EVs, pushing to use school buses for energy resilience. I'm going to talk about this later in the calendar check. There's going to be a webinar. We're hosting a webinar series starting. Oh, that's the wrong date. It got moved to June 26th. I think I have it in the right date in the final slide.
Yeah, you updated it after I loaded it. This is in our deck now.
June 26th is going to be the first webinar about a series, I think close to a half a dozen webinars just about integrating bidirectional school buses for resilience and other purposes. Having some goals related to vehicle grid integration and advancing a market for vehicle grid integration using, having statewide tariffs and making sure that the big industrial utilities, PG&E, and the rest of them have good tariffs that support this. So that's what we're working on with the governor. I think that's the last slide on the governor. Go to the next slide. So the budget. Our main work, and I was involved in this directly, getting us onto this budget letter. That we've been in a constrained budget thing for a couple of years now. It's still not looking good. So anybody stepping up and saying, "Oh, we want money for this," or "Don't cut our thing," everybody's saying that. So it's really tough to try to, maintain what you have or get anything new. But even in that situation, we're still calling for increased investments in transportation, clean public transportation. We are opposing a governor's proposed cut of $500 million. Prop 98 is the legislation that has sort of schools to be sort of the first in line for funding, but they're calling for a $500 million cut in funds for electric school buses. And it's also requesting an additional $250 million for medium and heavy duty charging infrastructure in the state. So those are some of the things related to the California budget. And the budget process is underway. They have all these committee hearings. A lot of what happens with the budget is behind closed doors, and it's a difficult process to track. As though the legislative process is easy. It's not. It's also very convoluted, and deadlines come really quickly. So anyway, 2020, the big bill, it turns out, I mean, I was looking at what's out there for electric vehicles this year, right? I have a laundry list coming up. Next slide that talks about the bills that are directly related to electric vehicles. They're mostly really minor things or things that relate more to e-bikes and stuff like that. The bill that the Climate Center is sponsoring by John Harabedian is a bill around virtual power plants, and it calls for the California Energy Commission to do modeling. There are estimates out there that so the big buzz in Sacramento right now is affordability. Everybody's freaking out about gas prices. Everybody's freaking out about electricity prices. Lots of concerns about affordability. Estimates have said that there could be like about $500 million in savings on electric bills if we were to really robustly adopt virtual power plants. And so it requires the CEC to do some modeling to say, well, how much is that true? You know, put some substantiation to that. How much money could be saved year on year if we had some virtual power an started, have a certain degree of virtual power plants in play where they make sense. Calls on for an implementation plan from the agencies of like how can we roll out VPPs throughout the state, and then requires reporting of the big investor-owned utilities, PG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, and California Edison, reporting on, hey, what's the status of your efforts to expand virtual power plants? So that's what the bill does. And I think that's the key thing for us. EVs are integral to that, or key to that, a big part of it. In fact, that's what our big the mantra about bidirectionality is that if we have 7 or 8 million EVs on the road in 2030, that's going to be an enormous amount of capacity to tap into, right? When they're sitting parked.
I don't understand what a virtual.
So virtual power plants are where you have control, sort of electronic digital control over resources that are out there in the field, be it, and it's got to be smart appliances, HVAC systems, homes with smart appliances that you can throttle the demand. You can either dampen the demand, or you can, if you've got stored juice, you can bring that juice in. And what is that? Why do we care about? Why does the Climate Center care about that? It sounds really cool, right? That you could sort of control resources out there on the grid, not fire. It's because you can avoid firing up a gas peaker plant, the polluting fuels peaker plants that they now use if there's a peak episode, demand on the grid's real high. So what do? Right now they have these spinning reserves that they just fire up gas. And that ain't good for, children and puppies.
For years, Sunrun has been including in their contracts when you buy a Sunrun system or you lease one or whatever, they include on the battery that they get to pull a certain amount of electricity out of your battery. On the East Coast for Con Ed, they issue RFPs and Sunrun responds to those and says, oh, I have this much power available if you want it. And what they do is they then use vehicle to dump it.
Yeah, and I should say, here's
your house.
And here's your question. What's in it for me, right? Well, the deal includes, let us have 5-10%, whatever it is, whatever, amount off you're willing to say, you could, you would get compensated for that. Yeah. Any person or entity on the grid that's the resource that's being used, that wouldn't just be, altruism. You would.
Yeah. Their original deal, which I think they had to back away from, they basically installed a system at their house.
Yeah.
And said, okay, we're installing your house. You gave us a roof.
Yeah.
So now you have to deal with the utility, but we get to take this much power from you, and you didn't have to actually lay money out.
Well, I did hear from a Sunrun people that you got compensated last year in PG territory for virtual power plant, like $3 a kilowatt hour. This year might be $2.
But that's still a lot
for that time period.
Yeah.
It's not all the time. It's when they pull from your battery.
20 days a year.
So,
Well, yeah, and that would be an incentive for us to buy the batteries because.
Sure, yeah.
I can't justify a battery to my wife because.
And right now, there are scattershot pilot programs here and there. The IOUs are doing some, the CCAs are doing some. Sunrun, there's sort of independent operators that are working it, but the tariffs, things need to be standardized for that. It needs to be coordinated. So that's what AB 740 is all about. So good, we're on the next slide. This is that laundry list I was talking about. These are bills that in some way or another, I didn't want to miss anything, so I just did a search in the state legislation pages. And, like I said, this one's about e-bikes and, a lot of it has to do with things like, this, we've talked about this before in these meetings, I recall, the classes of e-bikes and the speed that they could get. There's some fiddling with that. So they're trying to do legislation to deal with that. There's some bills about responses to electric vehicle battery fires.
The SB 770 is interesting because this is typical. Most municipalities already have this. And when you get enough municipalities, the state says, maybe we should have this at the state level. Right?
For EV charging at multi-unit
Yeah,
dwellings.
if you go to Sunnyvale, you go to San Jose, you go to Sebastopol, they all have in their zoning says if you build the multi-unit in such and such, X number of percentage of the parking spaces must have
the
capacity to charge a car.
Yeah, and there's been legislation for like it's layered legislation over the last few years, sort of addressing this issue of multi-unit. I don't think that it's an entirely resolved issue because you've got existing buildings and how do you retrofit them? And that's probably maybe the bigger problem, I think, going forward, having charging infrastructure or at least charging ready, infrastructure for new construction is much easier than figuring out how to wedge it in charging to existing buildings. So we're seeing legislation about multi-unit dwellings year over year.
Is 533 about
which one?
Standardizing
building?
533.
533. So this is internet-based charging. Yeah, and we've seen the same thing for this over the last few years. They're saying, look, don't make it hard for people to walk up to a public charging station. Let them use their credit card. So that's one that is, I read it. It's kind of weirdly written. I don't fully honestly don't fully understand it. It has something to do with if you are an internet-based, if you're using an internet-based system, your internet-based payment thing must be accessible to others or something like that. So it's just a weird bill. And so none of these for us, for the climate center, rose to the level of, we need to deal. So we're not working on any of these. I put them here just to say that, and these are, so you'll all get, there's two things you'll get, the slides that can be shared, right? And there's lots of hyperlinks. So these are all hyperlinks and also mostly matches up is just sort of a Google Doc that has the same stuff. So that might be a little easier to play with. So you can look into any of these, and if you need help figuring out who you need to talk, if there is one that you're interested in and you need help figuring out who in Sacramento you should talk to, there's lots of staff people that I work with all the time. I can maybe plug you into the right people if you want to drill down and find out what's going on with any of these.
Any idea at all? I know you're not an expert on these, but why the CEC, what's the standards for EVSE? Seems like that's already done at the SAE level or at the national level.
We're talking.
The very last one, 698.
I noticed that one too. I'm like,
what is
really?
that? Why
Don't we already have?
Why would you put your finger into that mess?
Jerry McNerney is a really smart he's a new member of the legislature. He came from Congress. I actually worked in 2006 on his very first campaign, went out and did door knocking in Tracy because
McNerney down in Cook
Tracy,
County?
Far East Bay, so
Oh, yeah,
Tracy
yeah,
area.
okay.
And I read this one, and I mean, you read the bill, and it turns out that even with everything we currently have, there's still some confusion and there's still some lack of consistency and um, uniformity in what the industry sees as EVSE, electric vehicle service equipment in California. So it tries to address some of that. That might be one you'd want to look into in more detail.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I sat right next to him on an airplane to DC one morning,
Really?
right after he got elected. And
Uh-huh.
we talked the whole time.
He's a wind energy engineer, expert, executive. Yeah, or was. Not sure if he's
Can
still
you
does.
explain the distinction between what CEC does versus CPUC?
CPUC is regulatory on the utilities. I mean, they have regulatory over a lot of things, telecommunications, and the California Public Utilities Commission. Yeah, well, for everybody, California Public Utilities Commission and California Energy Commission. Regulatory on the utilities. California Energy Commission actually is more of the regulations on the public utilities, and does a lot more of the sort of research. You know, they're sort of more of a research arm of the or agency in the.
Which one validates tariffs?
CPU, California Public Utilities Commission does the tariffs for the electricity system. Yeah, and then there's the Air Resources Board, which is one we deal with all the time, and they are on mobile sources of pollution, and so that's sort of the place where we engage with them more than just about anything else. And a lot of my work, there's this. I want to mention, you know, because in my work, the work I do, there's the legislature in tail end of 2022. Passed, you might remember this because there was a buzz out there, it was in the news, the price gouging bill. We had some really high gas spikes. That price gouging bill, SB X12, sounds like a 1950s sci-fi rocket, right? SB X12 included a transportation fuels transition plan. Takes up a lot of my time these days because we're working, the Air Resources Board is charged with developing a transportation fuels transition plan. So what's that going to look like? This could take more than an hour just to talk about this because they're dragging their heels. They don't even want to do it. They're not convinced to get away from combustion fuels. They're not all in on transitioning to electrification. But we're pushing them, and it takes up a lot of my time with a lot of my colleagues to try to get that transportation fuels transition plan that we're expecting it'll be done sometime in early 2026 to actually have a good plan for. We think it should be transportation electrification.
Well, we're already doing that.
It's happening, right? And it's the best mousetrap, right? We know that, but there's forces in Sacramento that tell legislators and tell staff and tell agencies, no, you don't want to put all your eggs in the electrification basket. We need hydrogen, we need this, we need that.
Crash on the
biofuels.
533, the internet charging payment applications. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you got to have credit card. My almost 100% success rate is with ChargePoint has a wireless card. It's not a credit card, and EVgo has a credit card. Or your phone.
The phone is the best.
So it doesn't require the internet, except on the charger side, perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's seconds factor.
So wait, is that different from the ChargePoint plastic thing?
No, it's the same thing, but that's not a credit. It's not a credit card, right?
Credit card, right.
So I would love to have a universal card that works across platforms. When are we going to get to that? So the credit card itself, that's been buggy. Sometimes works.
Right.
That's
my experience.
It's easy to hack.
Then the last thing is the uptime record keeping reporting standards for all the non-tested chargers. It's like, is any agency monitoring that they maintain their effing chargers? Because
And
that
there
is
was a bill about
major
this last
epidemic.
year, and I think if memory serves, there was a bill about it the year. But this is another one where we keep seeing legislation about this.
It's a record keep.
Record, yeah.
But are they? Is there any accountability?
Mandates that they actually have, uptime that's a certain standard. I would talk to that author. I would
put that was in the federal side already. I thought that was in Biden's bills.
It may be, however, I do not focus on federal stuff at all. My focus is California. So there is stuff that happens at the federal level that could have a bearing on what we experience in California, Brad.
Do you know who at the state level regulates, like enforces the rules around EV chargers? Because when Tor mentions broken chargers and things like that, or malfunctioning ones, you can report them to the company. But if the company doesn't fix them, it was something that came up, I think, last month, maybe the month
Around
before.
consumer reports.
They have
Brad.
different business plans as far as their response times, the companies. do.
Well, what I don't understand is this, if the gas pump doesn't work, do we have legislation that says the gas pump must work? If something doesn't work in a business, the business goes out of business.
Here's the difference.
Why is this different?
The profitability. So there is a keen interest on the part of that gas station operator to make damn sure everything's working fine. So they're self-motivated.
What about the
There's not a huge profit. Nobody's making gobs of money from any single charging station, right? So and you've got this mixed bag of ownership and whatnot, like the property owner or the charge point or whoever might be. So that's this hodgepodge, crazy quilt of responsibility, I think, with EV.
That was the part that bothers me. I thought we should, for public charge stations, we ought to have public facilities like we used to have, because we're all going to charge up in a garage anyway, if you have a garage, right? But when you're on a trip, it's like, I want to go find where the station is. I don't want to go behind the grocery store. I don't want to go, this is kind of.
Well,
I think Tesla has
If they work, I'll go find
a
them.
good model, but anyway.
I was just gonna, my wife who drives a Leaf, she's gone to places and they've had two chargers, they're both out.
Yeah.
And she's had to get towed. Because they didn't have chargers working.
Yeah, I mean, it just speaks to what the conversation here is, that, we're still in this very much, as you all know, in this sort of, growing pains era of EVs, and that chicken and egg of how many chargers, in EVs first and chargers. We're pretty far along, but it ain't over, right?
Yeah, I don't know who regulates gas stations or pumps at the state level, but at the county level, it's county weights and measures, and they have those stickers on all the pumps. So if you notice a problem with the pump, you can call or notify them, report the pump or the station.
That it's out of service, or that it's charging you the wrong amount?
Usually they're charging the wrong amount, but you might try reporting an out of service pump. Usually you go to the station first, and then they'll give you an answer. And if you don't
I
believe
can't
it,
do that because I don't put it into it.
I don't think there's I don't think there's anybody that wears a star that walks around and arrests people for having charging. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. There's no cop that does that.
I think that's why Consumer Reports was interested in public shaming methodology.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be a larger network, and at some point we're going to have a choice between, say, EA and EVgo or something, you can say, well, you may not want to go over to this particular brand because they're not good at keeping them up or something like that.
It's almost like Yelp reviews, Yelp reviews for EV charging stations.
I think there's value in having a healthy non-Tesla high speed charging network, whether it's 3 or 4 brands, that's okay. For this all to emerge to be only Tesla superchargers, it's not healthy long term with Mr. Stability at the top. Yeah. So that's all I'm saying is this might be a pin, but I don't know if this group has the wherewithal to sort of talk this through and write a letter to somebody to get legislation.
To go back to your
I would say, you've got an indication that the authors here are interested in these issues. It's probably would be a good idea to start. And Ben Allen is a really good author. Charging station multi-unit. Richardson, I don't know him. Upkeep. Jackie Irwin is a really good member, relatively new, good member. So engaging with them and, getting on the phone with staff, and I can help put you in touch with staff and say, what are you trying to do here? Here's what we're experiencing. I'm with the North Bay Electric Auto Association. Here's what we think is important. You can do that any given day.
Right. I forgot. If you have a specific complaint, the Cal EPA has a complaint form on their website that you can fill out. Even if it doesn't fall into one of their regulatory, meaning they can enforce it, they may be able to refer you to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District or whatever government agency may be able to enforce that particular issue.
I read a report this week that said that just the phone support for a non-functioning EV charge event is about $2 to $5 a minute.
Wow.
So you call in and say, this, I'm having a bad charger experience. On the other side, talk about going to be a profit motive problem. It's it costs the operator about $2 to $5 a minute to
have somebody talk to you.
And I'll just say, with ChargePoint, I have called that 800 number a number of times, and I usually get someone, and several times they've resolved the problem.
Unplug.
Another time to go, we'll
reset.
contact the owner.
I-
Like, you're not the owner?
Yeah, and a couple times it has not been fruitful, but
Anyway.
it's
Well,
actually
Electrify
worked.
America has been really good.
Which one?
Electrify America has been, so I end up calling often because I screw up all the time. Mostly because I have a cover on the telephone, and so with the cover on the telephone, it doesn't always work on the readers.
So you're the tinfoil hat guy from Sebastian.
Any other
Anyway.
questions on this
That's good.
legislation laundry list?
Yeah, I got.
Thank you for pulling this
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
Do we have any questions
Oh,
online?
David's got one.
David,
Yeah, with all this legislation, do they do cost benefit analysis when they put this legislation forward? Is that in there somewhere?
so the place where fiscal analysis happens, a bill is designated a fiscal bill or not. I don't know the arcane decision-making process, how they designate whether a bill is a fiscal bill or not, but if it is designated to be a fiscal bill, which means, is there an expectation that it will impose costs on the state? It goes to what's called the Appropriations Committee. And the and I meant to mention something about that, about AB 740. So thanks for this question. The Appropriations Committee is where they talk about, where should I look if I'm trying to look at David? Oh, that's the camera.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, right at me.
Anyway, so appropriations is where they examine the costs and the supposed benefits of any given bill. That can happen with any of them anywhere along the way, and it usually does. There is no hard and fast requirement that every single bill has a cost benefit analysis.
So so there's no requirement, so they could pass a bill and they wouldn't know what the cost is going to be or what the benefit's going to be. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it depends what the bill is about, and sometimes those things are sort of determined after the bill's been adopted, and they are in an implementation phase, and sort out costs and benefits. But no, you're right. There's not some kind of Uber, other than what I already talked about appropriations. There's no overarching mandate for a cost benefit analysis for every bill that gets introduced.
Well, what I'm concerned with is everybody's talking about, refineries closing, and there's estimates of being gas costing $8.50 a gallon. In Southern California, I guess somebody's already charging well over $7 a gallon for it. But everybody's talking about energy costs, and if there's no if they're not trying to figure out what the cost is until it's implemented, somebody's going to have to pay for it. And I just think on top of not having fuels and costs going up, they're going to have to pay with it for what? From more taxes in California, which is probably one of the highest in the country already. I'm not sure I understand where the money's coming from or what the benefit's going to be. I mean, if the cost was X and the benefits and savings was X, fine. But if the cost is X and the benefit is costing 5 times X, which is what that power plant down there in Southern California that they're shutting down, when they signed the contracts, it was my understanding that the cost of the energy was established at 4 times the going rate. I mean, that's what they did. And it was like, anybody with a brain would have said that's nuts, but they did it anyway. So I don't know. Get ready for higher costs, I guess.
I think we might have some response over here, but before you go, Tor, I just wanted to say, from where I sit and how I have to look at things, it's kind of on a case by case basis, because with some bills, there's more of a need for a cost benefit analysis. With other bills, there's less. So it's really sort of a case by case. Were you going to say something, Tor?
Say almost every bill that I've looked at some point, there's some analyst that
Yeah.
assesses it. Sometimes it may be a qualitative, like maybe not a thorough cost benefit analysis, but some like no fiscal impact or something like that. They'll say something in that category.
But again,
That's
those are at the, does it cost the California government more money? It's not, does it
Well,
cost?
okay,
I don't
think so.
okay, wait.
Users.
So I was talking about, yeah. So I answered it in sort of the terms of like the state and their process, and that's the appropriations. Every single bill, there are bill analyses, and when you go to that bill's webpage, you can click on the committee. Every bill will go to something like the Assembly Utilities Committee or the Natural Resources Committee or the Environmental Quality Committee, right? So there's these various committees that'll be assigned to the committees. Those committee consultants put together an analysis, and it absolutely will have cost benefit analysis type information that you can look at. That's not just for the state. It'll say consumers may experience increased costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can find that. I was answering specifically to a required cost benefit analysis, which was what I heard in the question.
Yeah.
No, there's not, but does it happen? Yes, it does. And is there analysis for the impacts of the state? Yes, and that's formalized with the Appropriations Committee.
Thank you.
I'm picturing a customer in a car dealership that makes a decision or wants to make a decision whether he's going to buy an internal combustion vehicle or an electric vehicle. I believe that that particular customer that's ready to spend some hard-earned money is not going to be, or doesn't want to be confronted with all the ifs and whats and other people making a decision because all of these legislative steps are done in the name of the people. It is so complex that nobody can even oversee that. Why don't they put, if it's just an idea, a gas station that also has all the electric charging outlets to suit that particular community? And just say, this is going to cost you 16 cents a mile, and this is going to cost you so much per mile. People do not have an idea how much money they're spending to get from A to B.
That's an
I believe
educational
it takes so much more work to inform the public why we're doing what we're doing with electric vehicles. Because it seems like that, all the environmental concerns are out the door again for the next 4 years. Can you comment on that?
Next slide.
Or we can go next.
Well, I think actually,
We're going to drill, we're going to do all
I'm
this
here.
stuff again. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite clear on what you're suggesting around.
What I'm suggesting is like, we as a group here, we're trying to understand all the intricate details that take us to making a decision what kind of vehicle we should be using. That's where I'm coming from. I've been doing electric cars for 25 years because I'm cheap. I usually pay better with any other means of
But just in terms of what a consumer, the person you're talking about with the hard-earned money, what they're making their decision, they make their decision at the dealership, and then they make their decision, at the fueling station, whatever. That falls on groups like us to do that education, because there's nobody else out there that's going to, Consumer Reports and other sort of public benefit kind of entities that want to provide valid, accurate information to the public do some of that stuff, right? And the apples to, try to do those comparisons between. And Union of Concerned Scientists has done a really good job, I think, on the environmental piece. They've done a whole, what's that?
RMI as well.
Rocky Mountain Institute has done some really good work to try to make it clear. So maybe boiling it down even further and providing that information for the consumers is our groups like our job in our community. Was there any other comment?
I think that's right. I think that's
right. Yeah. Because
the point is that in summary, after we look at all this detail, we have to zoom out and think of the very, very high level. What people want to do is to save money and drive cheaply. And, you know, maybe we need to do more educational work around how cheap it is to maintain an electric car and also
And getting
power it.
past the fears, the myths about the
Yeah, I
downsides,
think
right?
that's good, yeah.
Let's maybe try to get through this. I see the
Yeah.
clock, we're just down to the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, right, I was talking, oh, before we get to this, I wanted to say that I forgot about AB 740. It's actually going to be up. It's still alive, and this is the virtual power plant bill. It's going to be in that appropriations committee this coming Wednesday. So, you know, just letting you know that. So that's where it's at. The appropriations committee is not a committee where they do a lot of, they don't talk about the policy so much, you know, what it's about. They just talk about the fiscal impact of the state. So it's a little bit different. And so not much for anyone like us to do because they don't really do a lot of serious public comment kind of stuff there. Just want to let you know that where it's at status wise. So like last year, Climate Center sponsored bill SB 59 calls on the state to get off the dime on making sure EVs in California are bi-directional as early as possible. What we've learned recently about this is, you know, there's supposed to be, we were expecting that there would be focused workshops and meetings that the California Energy Commission would put together. We've recently been told, no, we're not going to be doing that. Disappointing. They are looking at folding that whole issue into Advanced Clean Cars too, which is a long-standing, Advanced Clean Cars is a long-standing program that's actually administered by the Air Resources Board. They collaborate quite frequently on things, so that's sort of a agency collaboration. So that's where that's at right now. We're still hopeful. There's a lot of times bills get passed and then the implementation, the agencies just fall flat or they resist and they don't want to do it and it drags on forever. We're going to remain vigilant and we're going to do our best to make sure that the governor and the agencies follow through on getting bi-directional mandates in as soon as possible. I talked about the transportation fuels transition plan. That's really mostly focused in on the refineries and transitioning the refineries. And all of this has been thrown into a tizzy with the refinery closure announcements. Folks probably saw there was an explosion and fire at the Valero Benicia on last Monday. So that throws it further. Everything that we're hearing is from them is that they don't expect it to force a closure, unplanned closure of the refinery. It was an isolated unit, isolated incident. It was a cracker unit, catalytic cracker unit that produces gasoline, but they're hoping to get it fixed and back up and running soon. But all of that to say that the tight market, the high prices of gasoline might be coming forward. I wanted to just also mention that, you know, their hydrogen industry is still putting pressure on the state of California to try to get hydrogen fuel cell vehicles to be a transportation option. So the Air Resources Board in late May, early June are going to be hosting some workshop or community meetings to hear community input on what you think about hydrogen. So they're not anywhere really near us. The closest one's in Oakland, Lancaster's in the high desert in SoCal, South Bay is going to be in Carson. This is the one you might be able to do virtually and maybe give them your perspective on the comparative realities for, say, hydrogen powered vehicles. I mean, we've all probably, most of us seen just sort of the extremely bad news for hydrogen passenger vehicles, light duty vehicles over the last year or so, just imploding, cost of hydrogen going up and, you know, hydrogen, whatever, vendors, you know, purveyors, you know, abandoning the effort. So in Europe too. So here and in Europe, yeah.
I was just curious if you could let us know what the predominant source for this pressure from the hydrogen industry is. Is it from the fuel, the oil, petroleum
It's
side?
like Praxairs of the world, you know, the gas company, the companies that are involved, that are longstanding companies that
but
have.
But it's not like doing, green generation of hydrogen. This is.
No,
generally
it's
the fuel.
pretty much, I mean, they'll do Happy Talk about how we're wanting to do green hydrogen. If that's even a wonderful thing, right?
But it's from the oil industry.
Some from the oil industry, yeah. I mean, because they're seeing that as an option for them. A lot of the sort of,
They probably could tap white hydrogen. Well,
I mean, white hydrogen that Jerry's referring to is geologic hydrogen, meaning
that's the business they're in.
saying that there are, yeah, drilling and all that,
Yeah.
that there are enormous reserves of naturally occurring hydrogen subsurface in the earth. In my view, that's just an absolute non-starter.
But some of the
And there's
pressure
some big conference coming up about it. I'm going to be.
Yeah, some of the pressure might be from those who invested in it, like Alameda. Alameda has a reasonably good number of
AC Transit. AC Transit. I've been down there. I've been on their tour. I've met with them. I knew one of their.
And it cost them a lot to invest in that, and they probably want to get some referral and make sure that the industry's going to be there. Blah blah blah. And it's not just the buses that they bought. It's the infrastructure they had to put in place.
And
in order to
boy, oh
support
boy,
the
is their infrastructure. You go down there and it is just a, what's that, Rube Goldberg machine of.
Well, that's the best argument against hydrogen, isn't it?
What, the Rube Goldberg?
Infrastructure that's required.
Oh,
The
it's
Rube
expensive.
Goldberg machine and the monitors for,
There was a
safety
large,
monitors that you need and.
large push to put hydrogen in the natural gas pipeline
Oh.
in order to reduce that. And then the one thing people don't recognize, you have to change all of the plumbing because hydrogen leaks through anything.
So leak,
Causes
once
cracks
again,
in
I
the
think
metal,
I brought something up where it's like, it's such a rabbit hole you can go down in because
So
there's
I
so
do-
many things about
I
it.
do want to go back though. I'm this whole thought about SB 59 made me think of, I mean, CARB leadership has to be spending their big brains on protecting CARB in the 17 states from the federal government right now. That has to be their major focus, right? Leadership's got to be thinking, how do I keep our CARB ability to keep the LA basin blue? Because I grew up there and it wasn't blue in Southern California in 1975
Not in 1985 either.
and
but
not 1985.
starting in the 90s.
It started in the
to
90s,
clear up.
became blue. So that's what created CARB's carve out. But right now, we're back to the EPA saying CARB is no longer going to have that carve out. So their leadership thinking has to be on that.
So what Dom is bringing up is something that I didn't include in this, which is everything we've been doing is under a new cloud of difficulty. Working in because there's a preoccupation and rightly so. There's existential threat to what these agencies have
correct
been, rightly assuming things would be this way for.
Right.
They've been this way since
the Clean Air
California
Act
got
in
the waivers
1970.
since 1970. But no, everything's topsy-turvy. We can't make any assumptions about what we're dealing with. So they are preoccupied with just maintaining their ability to do the things they've always been able to do.
I wonder why the U.S. government cares.
Let me just say, the Climate Center, we and a lot of our colleagues, coalition folks we work with, we're not interested in just holding the line and keeping things, defending what we've already got in California. We want to continue to make progress over the next 4 years. So we're going to keep pushing.
Right.
We're going to say, yeah, ARB, you gotta deal with that. We know you're dealing with the
Gotcha. So
however,
your strategy is to continue.
we don't want you
push
to
the
cut
ball.
500 million, the 500 million that was already allocated for school buses. We want you to add 250 million for heavy duty charging infrastructure.
Okay. So that's your
Keep going.
strategy.
That's our
Okay.
You gotta do it.
Part of the thing that I got recently, but why does the federal government care what we do in California? Why won't they let us do what we want to do? We're the fourth largest economy of the world. We're the fourth largest consumer in the world. So therefore, we could actually drive what the U.S. ends up doing because
they're ideological, and that is not logical.
Well, no.
In other words, we're being wrong to them.
That we have as a manufacturer, coming from a manufacturing background, I have to have a car for this environment and a car for that environment, right? I mean, why would I carry the extra cost of this platinum rhodium converter or catalytic converter if I don't need to? If I need it in California in the 17 states and I don't need it in the other 33. So why would I do that? So CARB is it's forcing the federal government to deal with the Clean Air Act.
Right. I see 5 minutes left.
Yeah, fair
Let's go to
enough.
the next slide.
You were right, Woody.
The SB 59.
Yeah.
The bi-directional.
Yeah.
There's how many electric cars on the road in California now?
How many electric? About 2 million?
2 million legacy vehicles. Is anywhere in any of that legislation looking at how or explaining why those 2 million can't be part of the bi-directional?
Well, some of
world?
them are, and they will. Yeah.
And I still haven't got a valid answer why mine can't. And then why the new chargers are bi-directional chargers. They need to work on making them equivalent in price to single, not $6,000.
They're more expensive. That's true.
$600.
The bidirectional EVSE is more expensive. That's true.
So I guess within all that, I'm
It's capitalism.
waiting for. When we learned from PG&E who's working on it, it's like 2 people. Is there a consortium that's actually, this has been going on for 10 years? Is there any, other than making future cars bidirectional, is there any work on making?
Well, our SB 233, that was the first bill we introduced on bidirectionality, included both.
Okay.
And we abandoned the effort on EVSE because it's so complicated. Jerry knows.
All right, you only have 5 minutes.
Yeah, he knows a lot about this. And so we decided, wait a minute, it's going to take more time to sort out the charging equipment side of this for bidirectionality. Let's at least focus in and get the vehicles ready for prime time.
Okay.
Right? And in terms
I remember that.
so that's
Okay,
where that's at. Deployment. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to go on this real quick because there's still a couple more slides. We're partnering with a company called NBEAA. They're hyperlinked there on deploying. The big focus is on bidirectional school buses, vehicle grid integration down in the Central Valley, southern part of the Central Valley, Porterville, where it's for a school, and it's going to provide a whole bunch of benefits for the community that can help them cope with extreme heat, wildfire, floods. And if you go to the next slide, it's just sort of a little graphic here that shows, oh, this really come out too well. You can sort of see that very faint thing there. Just it would help with everything from, refrigerating medicines and medical equipment, EV charging, laptop, everything down to your own phone charging, stuff like that. Can serve as a cooling or warming center, depending on what the climate is doing. And at a known community site, that's what we kind of learned. You don't want to put it in some weird space, put it in a school that people already know about. So we're focusing on school buses, and that's a project that we're working on that should have some good results in the coming months, and early 2026. I think is when there's going to be some more info about the sort of results of that. So you go to the next slide. And Brad asked about, he provided some really good information on this. And there's tons out there because it is a situation where year over year, we're seeing record profits for the oil and gas industry. And year over year, we're seeing, well, not necessarily year over year, but generally speaking, they're spending on lobbying in Sacramento, and I focus on Sacramento. Not sure they do similar in Congress. But in Sacramento, they spend a lot of money to crush good, common sense, clean energy, climate, transportation legislation. This could be a record $9 million. It's on track to be as much as the record that has been in 2024 was the highest amount ever spent in Sacramento on oil and gas industry lobbying, 38 million. So we could be up, in the same level. 2025. We're outspent something on the order of 15 to 1, and we collectively, the whole sort of environmental clean energy lobby. They're deep pockets, so they're often there early and often with an army of lawyers and lobbyists and whatnot, bending the ears of the legislature and the staffs. We don't have about a quarter of the Democrats in the legislature are not inclined always, they take oil and gas money and they vote might as well be a Republican and sometimes the way they vote. So just, partisan, I don't want to get partisan, but just to say that if you think that we're okay because we've got a 2/3 majority of Democrats in the legislature, that doesn't mean we're going to get votes going the right way. And we don't, right? So that's part of it. And so we're up against that on a daily basis. And it's not just big oil, it's the utilities. We get obstruction from PG&E, even though they're doing some good things, but the utilities are also there to really does say a lot of times it'll be this thing where out there in the community they're saying we're working on this and we're on the front edge of leading on this, and then at the California Public Utilities Commission or in the legislature they're doing everything they can to hit the brakes on some of this good stuff. And then big ag, we also have programs that relate to trying to get climate smart agriculture going, and so there's also big ag out there that's pushing against good climate policy. And Brad sent him some material from Cal Matters that was talking about the lobby industry. Appreciate that. I just saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to refer because I don't see the link on the slide. But Cal Matters did an article that I saw and forwarded to the NBEAA about lobbying at the state level and how the two biggest groups were
Western States Petroleum Association is one of them.
Yeah.
It's the Western States Petroleum Association, the California Chamber of it's the usual suspects here, right? California Chamber of Commerce, the California Independent Petroleum Association. Yeah.
So when John asked earlier about which groups are lobbying this California Energy Commission, I don't know what other fossil fuel industry groups there are besides WSPA, but like for propane, natural gas, there's all sorts of different industry groups that spend a lot of money. Lobbying for their interests.
That's right. And in the Google Doc that I put together, the entire post that you did is in there with the links to the Cal Matters article.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's in the doc.
Your point on PG&E was interesting because Climate Center program that a number of us joined in on 2 years ago. One of the members was from PG&E, two of them actually. And Andrew always say, well, we're actually two different companies. There's the company of the old people and the company of the new people. So the ones that you see working on the new programs and the company of the new people, the ones that are testifying that we can't have these things, and the company of old people says that how else would we maintain stability? So it's a weird company.
A lot of tension. Yeah. Okay, next slide. So this is the last slide, and just to say that there is going to be, I think this is important, a demand flexibility summit on May 22nd in Davis for anybody. I think it's a hybrid meeting. I think you can join virtually as well as in person. And I put that on there because this is where the virtual power plant thing and integrating electric vehicles into the system so that you can manage load on the grid, manage demand. That's where that comes into play. So we're a deep dive on demand flexibility. You might want to dial into that. And then I mentioned earlier, the correct date is here for this beginning, about a half a dozen webinars, all about electric ESP's electric school bus, vehicle grid integration, webinar series coming up. So sign up, register for that. If you just go to our homepage and you want to get alerts about this stuff, right on the homepage of the Climate Center on the right-hand side, there's like a yellow box, and that's how you can get our newsletter, sign up for that, and that gives you the alerts about our webinars and other things we do. So I think that's it.
Woody,
and then there's my contact information in the last slide. Yeah, that's me.
Woody, I saved my own lobbying point because one of your first slides had to do with not enough money at the state level and pressure with the budgets. So I run into it at the FTC all the time. And one of the things, I was responsible for getting the first electric school bus on the road in California back in 2015. And I was at the hearings, and we have the HVIP program that still exists. And I always said, this is a
heavy duty
program.
Vehicle incentive program, HVIP.
It's a stupid program because you give money and basically the schools end up with a free bus. They can actually work it so they end up with a free bus. I'm going, all you need to do is prove to them that EVs cost less, why doesn't the state loan them the money through the HVIP program and have them report, and they pay back every year on the loan based on the savings they had every year on fuel and on maintenance?
Good
If
idea.
they
Let's,
did that, then the program would be funded forever instead of running out of cash every year.
here.
All right, very good.
All right.
Woody,
Yes.
as a speaker, you get to choose between a small hat and a big hat.
Put 'em on the spot.
Looks like
I don't know which one is which.
looks like the small one might fit. Wow, look at that.
Look at that. All right. Thank you. This is tremendous amount of information, and I'm so glad you buried the links in there.
Yeah,
So we can all take this for action and then coordinate a response
Yeah.
to what things we want
You're
to.
gonna update the deck.
I'll update the deck for
Okay,
the
before I
dates,
do
although I
the
think that last one was the
The
right
last one
date
was
was
the
the
right date.
26th.
26th.
Yeah, so we just
Yeah.
need to fix that one.
And they're at 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good.
And I'll send the doc too, 'cause I
Yeah.
was working on that till the last
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'll put it up in the meeting minutes.
Good. All
Thank
right.
you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
fantastic
That's all.
stuff.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, so next meeting is, well, I don't know where it is, but it'll be on June 14th, 10 a.m. I'll
will
be here. Where's John? I assume he's gonna be here.
You say you're gonna be here?
I will not be here.
I will not be
here. And I don't
We
know.
could be here, or we could do it just online, I guess.
Yeah, since the owl is gonna do what it's gonna do, we have to figure out if we just do it
Yeah.
online or if we
Maybe
do it here or
should just
whatever.
try
So,
online, but we'll
Yeah.
let everybody know.
yeah, we'll figure it out and post it out there. So, any other re-attacks?
No,
Okay,
I
meeting
know you
adjourned.
gotta go. So.
All right, yeah, I do. I've got a kid in town finally, so. All right. Thank you, guys.
Mike,
Very
you
neat.
didn't figure it out, Mike?